Welcome to the third programme in the Sligo Style series. I'm Steve Wickham, once again exploring traditional fiddle playing Sligo style. I hope that you've been with me now for the last two programmes because it's been a real eye-opener. I picked up some amazing tips and I can promise you that there's more to come. In the first programme with Declan Folan, I got a great grounding from Declan of ornamentations and getting a flow between the bow and the fingers. Second programme, Philip Duffy brought me along further from there, trying to tune me into what people mean when they talk about the Sligo style of fiddle playing and the importance of keeping true to the way that the playing has been developed in a particular area. Philip's amazing at that, he knows his area very well. So today I come to Oisin MacDiarmada. Like me, Oisin was classically trained, but he also grew up playing traditional music as part of his family, and he's been part of the traditional music scene from a very young age. In fact, having started first playing fiddle in Clare, including sessions at the Willie Clancy Summer School, and then coming to Sligo at the age of 11. I was a bit surprised when Oisin admitted that he was only when he heard RTE producer Harry Bradshaw playing Coleman recordings that he really sat up and took notice of Sligo style. From there for him it was headlong into the life and music of Coleman. What strikes Oisin most about Coleman's life and playing was his single-minded pursuit of perfection and a solo performer of the fiddle himself. Now, unlike most other Irish musicians who went to the States, Coleman completely avoided the dancehall band circuit. And I was interested when Oisin told me that Coleman was so accomplished that he joined a vaudeville show straight off as a travelling performer, dancing and playing the fiddle. And Oisin feels that this influence is seen in the intensity of Coleman brought to developing the virtuosity in his solo playing.
He would have arrived into a bustling New York, and he kind of jumped fairly quickly into the professional music circuit, and he joined the Keith Vaudeville Theatres.
Wow.
That must have been
playing a solo, do you know, or was he?
Yeah,
he was
playing solo. He would have been part of a vaudeville show, so you would have had a number of different, I suppose, artistic forms happening in that. So it must have been incredibly eye-opening for him to be entertaining amongst, I suppose, a variety of wonderful entertainers.
So he's an entertainer, he's standing on the stage, he's performer.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of crucial really in understanding the recordings of Coleman, because we are struck by the showmanship that he displays in the recording. I mean, they really are up a notch from what you'd imagine someone to be playing in a house dance scene in Sligo. So I know Coleman did enter competitions. There were fiddle competitions back in Ireland at that time, so they would have been used to playing, I suppose, with a bit of panache and things like that. But being part of that vaudeville circuit had to have informed him, had to have, I suppose, maybe brought out that performativity in his playing.
This very virtuosity divided him from his peers back in Sligo. Many of them, for example, the celebrated Philip O'Byrne, who had a huge influence on Coleman as a young player, felt that it was gone too far. He was playing far too elaborately. So perhaps Sligo style as we know it today was quite different to how the fiddle would have been played at house dances across South Sligo in the early 20th century. Now, Oisin gave me an idea of the huge contribution made by Coleman in bringing this traditional fiddle playing beyond this. Even though his recordings may not have been universally welcomed in his home place, they certainly marked a turning point in liberating fiddle players from just slavishly serving the dancers, and it allowed the melody of the tunes to develop. Repertoire is an important part of any fiddler and any regional style, and Oisin feels that Coleman's recordings have been essential in keeping the Sligo repertoire alive. For example, in the way that sets of tunes have been passed down to today's players. Sets such as PJ McDermott's and James E. Gannon's. We were playing a tune earlier on that we were talking about the bare bones of a tune.
Yes.
And when a Cayley band or anybody's playing in a group or a session, we learn the bare bones of a tune. True, and we know where we are. And the kind of interesting thing about Coleman, when you listen to his records, it's he has the bare bones, but he's improvising around the bare bones, and it's kind of there's kind of a loneliness about it, isn't there?
There is, yeah. I think you put your finger on it there with the bare bones. I mean, it's a very, I suppose, established part of traditional music is the bare bones, probably coming from the dancing. Yeah. Dancers love a structure, love a nice clean rhythmic and melodic structure in a tune. Coleman was a dancer himself, let's not forget that as well, and a very good dancer.
And dance and fiddled at the same time.
That's right, things. He did indeed, yeah.
Yeah, that famous picture of him with kind of slightly cross-legged when he's standing there That's obviously, he's in mid-dance or just about to dance or something.
That's right. It must have been quite impressive.
Yeah.
Michael Coleman, who was a fiddler from the Sligo area as well, mentioned that he learned that particular skill from Coleman. Yeah, exactly.
And Morrison was a dancer as well, wasn't he?
He was. There's that dancing thread, you see. Coleman, for whatever reason, didn't really embrace the dance hall scene in the way that James Morrison did. When he went to America, he kind of ploughed a more solo path, you know, which makes them quite different as fiddlers.
One thing for sure, Coleman set the bar very high for players that were to come after him. Now, Oisin does a lot of teaching and advises on the music curriculum for schools, and he believes that learning a tune, the bare bones, is clearly the best place to start. Bare bones.
Miss Monaghan.
Yeah. Miss Monaghan.
Great reel, really great reel. I suppose the standard version that would be played by people nowadays. An interesting one to look at Coleman's playing it. It was one of the earlier ones he recorded. 1922 was when he recorded with the pigeon on the gate beforehand. Yeah. And I suppose he showed his mastery of improvisation and variation. The Coleman version is very elaborate. Right. He doesn't lose any opportunity to do intricate finger work. I'll give you an idea of it. I suppose one of the biggest elements in it would be the runs of triplets, of legato triplets. He's very fond of those. Yeah, that's a Sligo thing though, isn't it? It really seems to be, yeah, and particularly runs of them, which create quite an elaborate flow in the tune.
Beautiful, and I love the thing that you're doing there with it's kind of bell-like, flute-like rolls at the top end. Can you show me how to do that?
Sure, yeah. A lot of it's quite gentle. It's a kind of nearly like a little trill with the finger.
So it's a little roll and then a trill.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you do that instinctively or do you do that consciously?
Instinctively, really, and you get a lot of people who listen to the Sligo fiddling would put that in. It's only like an additional kind of little florid detail in it. So the little finger is really important in the Sligo fiddle playing. Yeah.
And then show me these little runs that you're doing on the way down. Let's look at it from the top, shall we?
Well, I think we're going to need the music because there's a lot of detail in there.
The music, right. You can't beat the Sligo fairies, huh? There it is.
Marvellous. Well, of course, Coleman wouldn't have learnt it like this, but he would have had the basic tune just like you played. Maybe in a way he wanted to make it more extravagant for the recording process. Yeah. Maybe he tried to make it suit the fiddle as well, and we'll look through some of the elements in the tune. You mentioned the triplets. I mean, they're a huge feature of Sligo fiddling in general, and he gets right into them at the start with the first couple of phrases. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's it, yeah. So he's cramming in an awful lot right from the get-go. A lot of players would play the tune basically first, and then they might elaborate the second time.
So
Coleman goes straight in.
Yeah, the bare bones is like.
Yeah.
So he's doing.
Absolutely.
So he's really pushing it out
right from the get-go. And if you consider which would be better for dancing, do you think?
I think the straight one myself.
There you go. You see, that would be very much linked to the dance tradition, where the space for the rhythmic profile of the tune. Here he doesn't leave space; he's filling in all that space with decoration. Yeah. So we'll try the first phrase maybe once or twice more. Yeah. So the bowing is very light. Yeah. Really, a lot of the Sligo style, it's not. You're not really digging in. Which in some particular styles, a lot of the Donegal players would sometimes play with a heavier touch. This is quite light and kind of nearly dainty. Some of it will be. Next little phrase. Now third phrase. Beautiful, beautiful. You see what he's doing there, he's bringing the tune down to the G string. Yeah. I think he probably is making it, fit for the fiddle. Yeah. Because you see, if you're playing this with a flute player, you mightn't play it in that way, or a tin whistle player. But the fiddle range, he's kind of using it there. And it's a lovely change on that first phrase. So I suppose from the top, just to put it in context, we have the first few phrases. Down low. Beautiful. It's a lovely move down to the G string again. Yeah.
And is he putting the weight on the bottom?
Yeah, on that little run. That brings you back into the next phrase. It's a great way of creating movement. Pick up, exactly. Yeah. So we'll try those first four phrases then. 3, 4. Now when it comes to the repeat, he does a lovely little rhythmic thing. Now
so is he doing what the jazz musicians used to do? They'd reference another tune like...
It could have been that. What I'm more inclined to think that he was just trying to change the rhythmic profile. Okay. So you see, with that little shape, that's quite a legato, it's quite a smooth. Now, once you go across the strings, you automatically have a very rhythmic figure. Yeah, yeah. So I think it's kind of the rhythmic change to go over there. Again, that's really strong because you're going back down to the same G.
And is he putting a force on it?
You inevitably do. You see, it's the tune is nearly structured that way. Put that down bow. So it makes it a big, strong rhythmic mode. Yeah. And then we have a couple of more triplets just to get into that groove again.
Well, that's it.
Good man. So what we tried to do with those triplets, rather than even thinking of them as 2 groups of 3, try to think of them as 6 nearly. It's one long.
Oh yeah.
Beautiful, exactly. Yeah, that kind of they create a great flow by being joined up nearly. Great. Will we try the whole first part there?
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Can I just look at that last line again? Where
Sure.
Do it again.
Good man. like a horn part there.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So from the top there.
Yeah.
2, 3, 4. Gorgeous, gorgeous.
It is gorgeous, yeah.
There's more there than there would be in a lot of people's rendition of an entire tune.
Yeah.
He's crammed into just the A part, which is remarkable. It doesn't leave it there.
No.
There is more.
Yeah. He goes, and now this bit he goes into the mystic with me. He goes into fairyland now with me.
Yeah, and we jump up with the register, you know, which is beautiful. There's a big exposed A.
Yeah.
It's quite lonely nearly up there. Yeah, so the long A roll there. Beautiful.
Am I playing that right?
Yeah, that's perfect. Perfect. Lovely. Back to the triplets. Yeah. Yeah, it's a gorgeous little effect, isn't it? Those two. Good man, that's coming together. Just watch the triplet.
Oh yeah. You're playing that as a 6, isn't it, again?
Good man. Now there's more triplets in the next phrase. Straight in again to...
Yeah. Are you playing that as a triplet with a little hammer on it?
Yeah, and kind of rhythmic with the first note. Nearly like plucking. Good man. Perfect. It's quite intricate, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, he's gonna.
Yeah,
It's almost like a hammer on it.
It is a little bit like that, yeah, yeah. The main thing is to keep it all in the one bow, you see, so you get the flow. It's one of those devices that once you've mastered it, you'll probably find yourself putting it into a lot of other tunes.
God help us.
And therefore you'll be playing in the Sligo style.
Yeah.
You know, it's definitely one of the strong traits.
That's very strong trait of Sligo style.
Very much so. Particularly Coleman.
Did Morrison do that as well?
Morrison was a little bit more rhythmic
Right.
in that his boy, he was nearly all about rhythm, an incredible rhythmic player. Whereas Coleman was kind of a little bit in between. He had the dance background, and he played with quite a lot of legato bow. But he also did he would often go, he would do the bow triplets as well. He didn't just roll it all the time.
Well, that's to all Irish music, and that's ubiquitous in all.
It is.
All traditions.
It is. But some players would only use that, and wouldn't do the legato triplets. But kind of Coleman did the two of them. The next little phrase, then we have a little double stop. Yeah, exactly. Well done. A nice little double stop at the end. Yeah, and that's a little pause, a natural pause.
Yeah.
So I'll just play it for you from the start to the second part, just to get the overview.
Yeah.
That's the natural end of the phrase there. Sorry.
I love that roll you do on the A. That's a great gift you have there.
I think that what's nice about those rolls is, and it can be used for most of the long rolls, is to hang on to the note, the first note, for as long as possible. You kind of leave it hanging out there.
Oh, okay.
Then you drop the last few notes just really subtly in at the end.
Oh yeah.
You hang the note, just leave it hanging out there. Beautiful, yeah. Great, And then he continues. So he drops the triplets this time, but he does something different.
Yeah.
He really emphasised Nelly in the dotted rhythmic.
Yeah.
It's very dynamic there.
And again, it's a kind of a hornpipe, isn't it?
Very much, yeah. Very dotted.
Yeah.
It is. And it, you know, he must have been aware, he would have been very rhythmically aware of being a dancer. So this
He's
is variation.
Fun as well,
He
though,
is having fun.
Yeah.
As we are, learning it.
Yeah.
Now, next phase.
Okay.
Oh, a whole load of triplets again. Yeah, I would do that one with, just like you're doing with the little finger on the A.
It's great getting this lesson. I love it.
There's so much in it. I mean, it's fascinating. It was fascinating for me just to listen to it again and to write out some of those music because you forget just the detail until you really focus.
Yeah.
We might try the first two lines. So we're halfway through the second part now at this point. Repeat of the second half, it's just slightly different. So. Yeah, and then it continues.
I find that very hard. That's it.
It's an awkward movement if you're not used to doing it. Yeah. You're getting the flow better now, yeah. Yeah, and the last line.
As we touched on in the previous programmes, the fundamental style of Sligo Style is a partnership between the fiddle and the flute. Oisin believes that the flute is actually taken over and is to the fore in this partnership in these times. And his advice to up-and-coming young players is to listen to flute players like Peter Horden, James Murray, Seamus Tansey and Gregory Daly if they want to get a real sense of the rhythm and phrasing of Sligo Style. So you had fiddle players and flute players, which defines a kind of a sound of Sligo as well, to a certain extent.
Very much, very much. And when I moved to Sligo in 1989, the flute was, I suppose, starting to dominate the Sligo sound and has done so for quite a few decades. The fiddle took a bit of a back role, ironically enough, given how strong fiddling was in those early recordings. But flute has taken over, and the flute is still a big part of the Sligo sound. And no one more than Peter Horn, I think he was one of the people who encapsulated that Sligo music for decades.
Right. So, could you name a few of the other defining flute players of Sligo Style?
Yeah, I mean, James Murray is still playing great music. Again, he would share some of that stylistic South Sligo music. People like Gregory Daly. I'm sure I'm leaving loads out. Seamus Tansey, exactly, an amazing exponent of the Sligo music. Then there's people, you know, if you broaden the region out down into parts of Roscommon and other places, there are a lot of people, Patsy Hanley, A lot of people, Tommy Geehan, a lot of people who play with quite a lot of rhythm. John McKenna, of course, would have been, you know,
Drumshambo. Is it Drumshambo?
He was from just outside Drumkeeran.
Drumkeeran, right.
Yeah, but he would be the big historic representation of that rhythmic flute playing from the
John
region.
McKenna recorded. Have we got records of John McKenna?
Yeah, absolutely. Harry Bradley was a big man in bringing those, remastering those recordings again, and they've been recently put out in a beautiful collection by Sean Gilrain.
Right.
An amazing breadth of music. It really gives you a window into that rhythmic style.
And are we finding the same tunes when we go to repertoires of Bradley, repertoires of McKenna and you know, the flute players and the whistle players and the fiddle players? Are we finding the same tunes?
Yeah, there was quite a similarity. James Morrison and John McKenna recorded a good few selections together back in the 30s, so they actually recorded together fiddle and flute. But there, you know, that music is still being played. The great flute player Harry Bradley, living now originally from Belfast, but again he's taken a great shine to that rhythmic music. So it exists now. It's just not the location of it isn't as fixed. It's more mobile. It's more transient in a way.
Seamus Begley one time said to me, he said, "Don't bother learning tunes that you don't like. Just learn the tunes you like, and they'll stick with you." And I think that was good advice he gave me, because I don't bother with. There are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of tunes, and as you say, you listen to them and one captures you and says, "Oh yeah, I'd like to have that." But there is a certain thing about discipline of music that we're talking about, that it's incumbent upon every traditional player to just sit down and learn the repertoire.
It is, yeah, and people do that in different ways. I learned a lot of my repertoire when I was younger. I was having a laugh when you were telling me about only learn the tunes that you like, because I think as you get older, that same has happened to me. When I was maybe 10, 15 years ago, I wanted to know every tune that anyone played in a session. So if you heard a tune you didn't like, you automatically set out to learn it. I don't know, is it laziness or are you just getting more selective? But I typically only bother learning a tune now that really grabbed me. But people learn repertoire in different ways. But I suppose it would be typical of traditional Irish musicians to have a very large repertoire. It does keep the tradition fresh, because there's nothing worse than, you know, going around to different places and hearing the same tunes played in the same way. I mean, that would restrict the vitality of our music. Repertoire is a big part of the stylistic diversity, really.
A tune is a tune. To me, a tune is a tune. And then you've got an individual player who makes it his own, and that's whether he's living in the top of a mountain in Donegal or in a bog down in Waterford. He's interpreting the tune himself. But this idea that there is a Sligo style based upon a kind of an accepted bunch of parameters, namely triplet playing, rhythmic playing, that you can define and say, well, oh yeah, I can tell he's a Sligo player by that. And we've kind of looked at that in the tune and said, well, it's triplet playing. It's a rhythmic thing. It's a simpatico between fiddle and flute, for example, that defines it.
Yeah, I think the fiddle and flute gives you that Sligo sound. And to me, Coleman, Morrison and Killorn came out of that music, but they were three incredibly individualistic and capable players. Any player, I suppose, that has that particularly exceptional skill level that they had invariably takes the music and does with it a little of their own and brings it certain ways. So where they learned was in the Sligo style. That was the music that inspired them, but they changed it. But I suppose not to use the word authentic, but I suppose the more commonplace Sligo sound on the ground, which you'd find at a session in South Sligo music, would be that combination of the fiddle and flute played in a fairly rhythmic manner, and also quite a bit of flow as well. When you put words on music, it's very difficult to be precise. The first man who tried it really was Sean O'Riordan in a series on musical heritage. He made an effort to break down traditional music into words can never really do justice to it. But like what you said with the accent, when you hear an accent, when you hear the music that was played in that era, it is recognisable as a distinctive voice. Certainly the fiddle and flute music.
Wow. It's pretty unbelievable, and I think how much we've packed into a few days. I've really done my best to absorb everything from these incredibly talented players. But just when I'm getting to grips with one thing, there's more. Now the next programme is the final one, and I'll be speaking to Seamie O'Dowd, so sit tight for a whirlwind of great music. See you then.